week 2 of free agency has opened up, and how active are the Chicago Bears going to get? We're going to talk about the cap space that they have left available. We're also going to talk about some running back prospects the Bears could look at if they do decide to add some more running back depth outside of the signing of D'Onta Foreman. We're going to look at all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central. I'm the host here, Haize. Right off the top, if you want to follow me, you can choose to do so at CEO Haize, at CEO Haize. And let's go ahead and jump into it. So the Chicago Bears were very active in the first week of free agency, adding pieces at positions that they needed. Now, we still have some holes, absolutely, that we need to look at. And before adding and looking at that, the Chicago Bears right now sit at about $39 million left in cap space, and could be a little bit less than that depending on exactly how the contracts of Billings and Foreman work out. But that's where the Bears sit. They still sit well above the next two teams below them, with the Atlanta Falcons with $26 million and the Green Bay Packers with $24.16 million. So the Bears still have a lot of free agency capital left to go after if they do want to bring in free agents. The biggest question is, what free agents could the Bears target, right? And that remains to be seen. There are some out there that could interest the Bears. Yannick still is somebody who is still kind of reported as the Bears having interest there. And I think that would kind of inform what the Bears are planning to do in the draft. But, that remains to be seen. But the Bears do have that flexibility to add. We are not over yet. We haven't even reached the point where we need to start, being selective. Well, they're going to be selective in the deals that they give anyway. But if the Bears see a player that they want, that they just think is going to help this team go on that playing push, they have more than enough assets to go out and get that done. Now, it still remains to be seen what positions are they going to attack in the draft versus attacking free agency. I think that picture's starting to come a little bit more clear. I do think that with what we've gotten on the offensive line, we could be looking to go offensive lineman early in the draft, defensive line. Both trenches areas are really kind of the focus right now for the Chicago Bears, and the biggest glaring holes for the Chicago Bears as well. So, we'll see how that, factors into things and what the Bears do if they do go out and target, if they do bring in Yannick. That would be a player that, of course, would eat into that cap space, but he would be another player that's definitely at a position of need for the Chicago Bears that helps shore up that offensive line, helps that defense overall that we need to, and brings in a player into the trenches. Those are all things that check all the boxes that the Bears are probably looking at for the remaining part of free agency. The biggest question is just what that number is, right? And if Ryan Poles can go get those players at a number that he feels is adequate, if he feels is going to leave enough flexibility to go out and do other things, and that's really it. And scheme fit, right? That's one of the biggest things that we walked away from free agency, or so far in free agency, understanding is that Ryan Poles, if the scheme fit is not there, and if it's not a clear scheme fit, there's a high probability that Ryan Poles ain't even looking at you. And so, that's big things for the Chicago Bears. That's a big thing for Ryan Poles in how he's building this team. And we're going to see how well that plays into this team improving in a major way. But I do think that leaves enough there for the Bears to go out and, do. And so, we'll see. There's some good fits out there, some intriguing things that the Bears could go after as well. But the biggest question is, are they going to, right? And if Ryan Poles thinks that the Bears have addressed enough in free agency right now, and then it's going to more so attack the draft and then maybe pivot back to free agency after the draft happens, where we're still quite a ways away from the draft. So that's going to be interesting thing to see how that plays out for the Bears and what they end up doing in the draft, because, hey, we'll see. Like, the thing with it, and I know a lot of Bears fans, they want it now, right? And that's a lot of us in general, and it's understandable why, right? But Ryan Poles is going about free agency in a very calculated way. He has his targets. He has the players that he has interest in. And what Ryan Poles has shown, if you're a guy that he looks at as being somebody he just thinks you're one of his guys that's going to help this team, he's going to find a way to try out and go out and get you. But with that being said, we're talking about the draft and what the Bears could do. I think we all understand and expect the trenches to be kind of the focus for the Chicago Bears, unless they do something crazy and unexpected. But with the Bears losing Khalil Herbert, right? And yes, we brought in D'Onta Foreman on a 1-year deal, but I do think that 1-year deal could leave some wiggle room for Ryan Poles to maybe go after a running back in the draft, and bring that running back along slowly, getting a real chance to evaluate them, not throwing them right out there and expecting them to replace a David Montgomery and what he meant to this team. And so, we can have D'Onta Foreman in that as a prove-it deal. But if the Bears do decide to go running back in the draft, and, we're going to look at kind of all the running back prospects. The first one up is, of course, Robinson out of Texas. this is a player that, right now he's the number one running back on the board in most mock drafts. It's not all mock drafts, but I think it's highly unlikely that the Bears are going to go after him with their first round pick, considering, it's trenches heavy in those early rounds, and those are positions that we need. But I know a lot of Bear fans have been talking about that, but I do think the signing of Foreman may mean if the Bears do go running back, it's going to be more towards the third and below rounds and try to get value in that area. But again, I wanted to talk about him because he is somebody that, the Bears could go after. And if they do decide to pivot that way and go that way with it, go another skilled position and getting another weapon at that ninth overall pick, Robinson could very well be there. This is a guy that has a strong game. He's an athletic beast. He's almost a prototypical running back in what you want in the modern NFL. He's 6 foot, 220 pounds. He can run. He has some things in the passing game that he can do as well. He's not the biggest power, and he has some injury concerns. But again, definitely, I think the number one running back in the league in the draft, and definitely somebody that could be there at number 9 for the Chicago Bears overall. The next one I want to talk about, though, and one that I think is a more realistic chance for the Bears to go after, and that's Zach Charbonnet. This is a running back out of UCLA, 6'1", 220 pounds. This is a guy that can come in and actually simulate a lot of what David Montgomery gave you. Size, power, strength, absorbs contact very well, has great running vision in picking his lanes. He doesn't have necessarily the breakaway speed, but he's solid in the passing game, excellent runner as well. He is somebody that you could draft and could be that long-term David Montgomery replacement in a way. Again, that's if the Bears go that high. He is slated to go in kind of that low second area, high third round area, with the Bears having 2 second round picks. They could take a shot at him there. And if they do, I definitely think he is somebody that the Bears absolutely would, develop and could be that number one running back long term if he develops and if he hits that potential. But he definitely has that potential in him. And then the next guy, and this is a guy you guys have heard me talk about a lot here on the show. Senior Bowl, I was very impressed by Tyjae Spears. At running back out of Tulane, 5'10", 190 pounds. This guy, speed, quick, agile. He does not give up on plays. He's going to get and break some tackles and get some extra yards for you. Great vision, holds onto the ball, doesn't fumble too much. He has great balance as well. He's kind of a more leaner running back, so maybe some of the concerns there over durability at the NFL level. But again, he's somebody that I look at and I say, if the Bears do get him, and especially because he can go late third, early fourth in a lot of these mock draft projections, if you can get a talent like that at that level, and bring him in, we got Khalil Herbert in the 5th round. We got David Montgomery in the 3rd round. So Tyjae Spears kind of fits that mold, and I do think that he's a player that absolutely can be a scheme fit as well, that we know is highly important for Ryan Poles and how he's building this team. He'd probably be my number one target. Zach Charbonnet is another one as well, who I just talked about. They'll probably be my number 1 and number 2 realistic targets for the Chicago Bears. But another one and another guy that you guys have brought up a lot too, Tank Bigsby. This is a running back out of Auburn, 6 foot, 208 pounds. This guy is a monster. Now, he doesn't necessarily replace what David Montgomery gave you, but he can be used in any scheme. Again, scheme fit is important for Ryan Poles and how he's been on the team. He gets touchdowns. He has the NFL size. You don't have to probably worry about durability with him. He doesn't have necessarily that next gear of speed, but that's fine. He hasn't really got many opportunities to be used in the passing game either. So can't really evaluate him there per se, but he maybe some potential there as well. So, those are kind of the ones that I'm looking at. The Chicago Bears probably taking a look at. There's other ones. Kenny McIntosh is another one that the Bears could take a look at. That's a senior out of Georgia, 6'1", 210 pounds. He's another guy that can go lower in that draft the Bears can get. Again, he's not going to be thrown in and expect to start right away. So in this first year, when we have Foreman, develop him, look at him, use him in some spot times. His height, speed, and weight combination and the strength level is good. He does have a high pass catching ability as well. Not necessarily the greatest blocker either, but again, another one that the Bears could take a look at if they do decide to go running back. Overall, what I want to get across in this is that if the Bears do decide to go young in the running back, there are some good and solid prospects deep in this draft at the running back position that we could go after addressing the defensive line, offensive line in ways that we think that this team will and needs to do. So, those are some things to look at. I do think that there's more than enough running back prospects in here, and the Bears are probably going to select one unless really they look at Treston Ebner still as a project for them and they still think that they can develop. He's a draft pick from last season. I do think that the Bears could go running back later in this draft. You guys can let me know what you think on that. Now, before we go, I want to talk about another former Chicago Bear, and this is Robert Quinn. And this just kind of highlights how sometimes at the time, even though I don't think this was the Roquan thing, I think when Robert Quinn was moved, we more so understood it, right? Especially with the production he wasn't given at that time. Yes, he was a season removed from giving us one of the best seasons he's ever had, but he just did not have that projection. He actually, him and Philadelphia have agreed to void the final 2 years of his contract, which now sends him into being a free agent this offseason. And so I definitely think when you look at the fact that we got compensation back for a player that we then ended up not using and wasn't highly effective for us, wasn't even effective for his team in a Super Bowl, and that team decided to void his contract, now making him a free agent. Now, I'm not to say that Robert Quinn is completely washed up. That's not to say that Robert Quinn can't potentially go to another team in the right fit and be productive for that team. But at the end of the day, a 13-year veteran that we shipped out, that we just weren't going to be competitive enough to take advantage, and he was not giving that production for the Chicago Bears that he had given a season prior. So, Ryan Poles, he continues to make smart decisions. And I know we have some that don't agree with the Roquan trade. Again, I look at it, we now are paying our full linebacking core only $4.5 million more than what we would have paid for just Robert Quinn. That's solid any way that you look at it. And so TJ Edwards, I think, is going to be potentially an X factor on defense for the Chicago Bears. And so Ryan Poles came in with a vision and he's executed that vision, and it's seeming to work out. We need to see it work out on the field and translate into wins. But at least, you can look at, and if you try to reframe some of his deals that he made last season and sending veterans away, it seems like at least most of them ended up working out in the Bears. Let's see if it works out in the future and it pays off in the future for the Bears as well. But let me know what you guys think on that one down below as well. That's it. That's my time for today. Thank you so much for listening to Chicago Bears Central. Make sure you're following the show at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform that we're on. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for our Friday and Saturday mailbag episodes, if you guys get in enough voicemails and emails, you guys can text us or send a voicemail, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. And like I like to end every episode on, bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.